Hi, Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang. There's a lot going on, so let's get right to it. Okay, Scoble, welcome.
What's up?
Oh, I want those.
The goggles?
The other version. Man.
If only I could go skiing this weekend. That'd be cool.
Why can't you go skiing? You ski. There's snow everywhere.
Yeah, I'm tired of traveling, man.
But
gotta stay at home. I got my family here. My son's here. My wife doesn't ski. She hates getting cold. Doesn't work out for me sometimes.
From Los Angeles, Danny Sullivan.
Hello. From sunny Southern California, but it's cold. Or, as I might say, hello from South California. I'm only a few miles from the border of West California, and a little bit further up is Central California, and then, of course, there's the great state of Silicon Valley.
No, of Draperland.
Next to the great state of insanity.
Well, I guess we know what you
and
think.
To live in the great state of Silicon Valley, you have to have a minimum income of $300,000 a year. Otherwise, Tim Draper's going to kick your ass out to West. What was that? West California?
West California. And finally, that song, "We're Heading Out to East California." Actually, I don't think there was an East California proposal. We are mocking the proposal by who is it? Tim Draper.
Tim Draper.
To divide California into six parts. This is just, it was up on TechCrunch yesterday. I guess he thinks we should have. I mean, I can see part of it, right? I mean, it sucks when you're in such a populous state, such a big state, and you're like, but in the Senate we get 2 votes, which goes up against 2 votes in Wyoming, and some of the way the Senate voting works made sense when big states and small states weren't necessarily as big and small as they are now. But yeah, I kind of like one big California. I'm kind of all right not having as much senatorial representation as opposed to being, one large state that's very diverse.
Okay, take a breath. So, also on the show today is Dan Farber. Welcome, Dan.
Hey.
Thanks. Good afternoon.
How are you?
I am well.
And you're from extreme North California, right?
Yeah, I'm staying out of Silicon Valley. I can't afford it.
And finally from Salesforce, California.
I am in Salesforce, California.
What's that?
And I look like it.
That's not good.
Is it me? I'm using a Mac. I figured it'd all be stable.
Okay, we're gonna have to stop. I don't know what's going on.
Was it just me?
I can hear him. I can see him.
No, it's a video. There's a video problem with Taschek.
Really, I can see his picture in the group shot.
Yeah, no, it's
It looks
fine.
This is what it looks like here.
Oh, that's not good.
Do we like that? No,
I like
don't think we like that.
Just leave him on the wide shot.
It's like a CAT scan.
He looks better that way anyways.
I'm being GE imaged. You don't have to show my
you know
picture.
what?
It's okay.
It's probably
I'm all right
that
with it.
new Skype. We had that problem a couple weeks ago. Do you have the new Skype?
Yes, new Skype. I just downloaded it again today.
I'm running the new Skype too, but I don't know.
Are you on a Mac?
I'm always on a Mac, man. Don't you remember I didn't take the job at Salesforce because you showed up with a Windows PC?
It wasn't only that, it was a ThinkPad.
It was and a crappy battery. I figured if my new boss was going to be using a shitty PC, I was going to be out of luck.
Well, this is probably the last show with this switcher anyway, so I'm sure we'll run into different problems the next time.
Yeah.
Okay, so John, you'll just have to be on the wide shot, and let's. Does anybody see anything interesting going on? Let's start with Dan Farber.
Well, my favorite story right now is Target. How all those credit cards got stolen from the point of sale, not from the online systems. And 40 million people, they're already showing up on the black market. And then the NSA, Obama had a press conference today, and he still seems to think things are okay. But if American people don't, then, they'll try to look at it more closely. And what else? The Mac Pro, kind of available. Not really shipping until February. And things are slowing down. I think everybody agrees that there should be a holiday, and they'll pick this one, and everybody will kind of go into hibernation for a few days and not announce much of anything, and then come out guns blazing for CES. End of my recitation, unless you'd like me to recite some poetry.
It would be better than what's going on right now, but
I think the Mac Pro is pretty interesting.
Hang you up.
As we've been waiting for it for 6 months now or more, and it's just not. You can configure it, and you can order it, and it won't show up until maybe February, as Dan said. But the cost is pretty enormous. I mean, you've probably already talked about this on the show. I wasn't on, but $10,000 for a fully configured one, $6,000 if you don't want the keyboard or the backup stuff. It's pretty expensive for a nice shiny object that won't be shiny after you touch it.
Well, I don't think people think it as a nice shiny object. I think it's one of those things where you look at it and you say, well, I'm going to amortize this cost. I paid $10,000 and then I just got a job editing this 4K video that's paying me $25,000. So I'm very happy with this machine.
Yeah, I think so, but it's using Xeon chips. I mean, there's 6-core Xeon chips. That's somewhat commodity, right? What they're doing is selling the design, which is that the cylinder wrapped around a heatsink, or the heatsink wrapped around a computer wrapped around a heatsink, basically, which is fantastic. I mean, you can put it on your desk. It's pretty small, and it supports the 4K video, maybe a couple channels of it. And I think it's going to be a powerhouse. I can see everyone in digital imaging, music, everything wanting this.
Well, if you really go back to the origins of Apple and where it had success, especially when the Macintosh shipped, it was in precisely those areas, and that's still the case for its high-end systems. And so this really is going to, I believe, satisfy some pent-up demand, and everybody's going to.
The volumes they got are not in those systems anymore, and I think that they're getting the same kind of margin on this. Again, it's commodity. It's commodity hardware.
Yeah, but
maybe that ATI Force card is not commodity, but generally it is. You're paying for design.
Most of what Apple does is commodity. I mean, they do make a few custom chips and things, but it's not in the fact that it's off-the-shelf parts. It's in the fact that it's designed and marketed and branded in a way that
the whole iPad is custom chips. The whole battery life, all that is all custom. This does not have any of that.
I wouldn't be so sure about that. I mean, if there's anything custom, it's the way it's the industrial design on the thing, and that sells.
That's what I was saying. It's about design. It's paying for design.
People do it.
Yeah, people do. But I'm just frustrated because, if it had come out a couple months ago, I probably would have bought it. And now that it's like in February, you're like, well, now I've had a lot of opportunity to think about what the best system is, and it's only one purpose for me, and it's not even that intensive, which is music production, and that's a small group of people.
Well, I don't believe Apple needs to sell bucket loads of these to call it a success.
Yeah. Apple is an iPhone company, and everything else is a little fun project.
Danny?
Well, it is the case that if you look at the MacBooks, the MacBooks maybe have a 10-12% share, but they also generate probably 30 to 40, maybe even 50% of the profits in that space. And that's more the model that Apple goes after, not volume sales, but profitable
But this is
sales.
different, though, and the reason it's different is because obviously there's been a variety of Macs out there, iMac to iPad to this. This is the first one in a long time I've seen trending on Twitter. So there's a lot of people talking about it. I think that's more of a volume. It's just that they're going to get a sticker shock when they configure it.
Yeah, somebody just wrote on Facebook. Brian Gadenti wrote, at $3,000, the Mac Pro seems overpriced. But when you try to price out the components, there's no way you could build one for less than $3,000, even if you could buy the case on its own. And so they're packing a lot of a lot of processing power into there. If you're a bleeding edge user, you certainly want one. And the bleeding edge user is who Apple still wants to have using an Apple product. That's why even if this doesn't make any profit for Apple, I think Apple would still do it because it keeps the Apple brand relevant to the high-end movie producer or film crew or musician. And that keeps the Apple brand fresh and alive and keeps everybody locked into their ecosystem.
Well said.
I think, though, that if you price it out, Xeon chips are very expensive. Intel has pretty high margins on Xeon chips, but do you need them? When there's i7 still out there, which has 6-core too. And I'm not a processor expert again, but I study them on TV. This is that's the question. Why do you need a 6-core Xeon chip? And is it really much better than i7? And for how long will it be better?
We'll wait for the benchmarks.
I'm sure the benchmarks are going to be pretty nice. From the first reviews.
I think the benchmarks will come from the video card, not Xeon.
I don't know. I think this will crunch through your videos faster than anything else out there on the market, and that's all. People who are buying this are doing it for 3D CAD drawings or high-end video processing. Like Dan said, the 4K video producer. I don't need it. My current iMac with an i7 is just fine and fast enough for the kind of video I do, which is YouTube style video. But if I was doing a full-on
4K
movie,
production, TV, ads, things like that, definitely. But a lot of that is again the video card and the SSD, up to 1 terabyte SSD.
Yeah.
I've been looking at this for a while. I think it's fantastic. It's like a want-to-have thing. I just don't think that it's going to justify this premium for people like me, anyway. I think it will for a lot of other people. That's spending a lot of liquid income.
I'm not in line for one of these things, so I can't justify it either. And I actually do some video, but I don't do cinematography video. So, it's what I got is fast enough for right now.
Yeah, for right now. But 4K will come out, and you want 4K video of the kids, family, skiing whenever you get to go.
Yeah, but I'll worry about it when I actually have to do it
because it's just going to be better.
This computer is going to get cheaper and cheaper over time. Moore's law is still in effect at some rate. So, if I need to do 4K video in 2016, then I'll buy it in 2016. I won't buy it today. I'm not a rich guy like Keith is. Keith can go and afford to blow $10,000 on a computer system and not really care too much about it. I don't have that luxury. So,
Steve, are you going to get a Mac Pro?
Oh yeah. Why?
Because it's Apple.
Well, I mean, I'm back at having gotten a iPad Air and not gotten the new Mini, so I'm sort of price conscious at the moment.
Hey, speaking of Apple and price conscious, what did you guys think of that video of the what was it called? The misunderstood
teenager.
Yeah.
It's all right. It was nice to think that the teenager would be doing all that. If you haven't seen it, it's an Apple ad where you see this teenager and everybody's doing their family things at the holidays and they're constantly on their phone and pointing stuff around. But then at the end, they've produced a video to show the whole family together. And even I was kind of cynical thinking, gosh, maybe you should have been participating with the family. Not that I would never be filming things like that, but yeah, it was kind
You
of
mean
sweet.
real life?
Like, oh, look, the teenagers aren't all being misunderstood. They're actually just doing it in their own way. So, yeah, I'm sure Apple really needed that to help people want to buy more phones and stuff.
Well, they are doing it in their own
Not
way.
that you're
They're not.
cynical at all about this.
They're
Yeah,
not
no,
making-
yeah. Thank goodness they got that in there.
They're not making movies about the family. They're off on Minecraft. They don't care about what
Yeah.
real life is.
It's true.
Yeah. So that's why they call it fiction.
So yesterday, I talk about fiction. Yesterday, I visited this startup, which is in this huge mansion up in the hills in Portola Valley, in a former rich guy's house, and it's called Meta, and they're making these new wearable glasses. They were sort of positioned as a Google Glass competitor, but I think that's not true at all. I would say it's more of a competitor of the Oculus Rift, where you're going to wear it in maybe at home or in a workstation at work and see a 3D 720p wraparound video in your eyes. But it's heavier than the Google Glass, and it's the battery life won't last that long. So you can't really say it's going to be a notification computer like wearable like Google Glass, but it's freaking cool. And this house that they have up on the hill is like it's something straight out of Iron Man.
Yeah, I was there a couple of weeks ago, and there's two companies right now doing it. One is Aether Labs, the other is Meta, and they're both doing something different from Oculus Rift. Oculus Rift, you have these goggles,
Yeah.
but you're in an enclosed world. With these, it basically they're saying, well, this is the future, which is to have the power of a Macintosh, MacBook Air, and an iPhone that you can use through these lenses. So they're stereoscopic, 3D depth, holograms, and all
They also have-
gesture-based.
They have a front-facing 3D sensor, so you can use your hands. And their real big breakthrough is the algorithms that map the world around you instantly, and your hands as well instantly. And so you can just put your hand in and start doing stuff, and it's like, that is really cool.
Yeah, it's called the low latency, high dexterity, which is, one of the problems with all these systems now is that it's too slow to calibrate where your hand or fingers are at, and so it just doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
And, in this case, they're trying to really improve upon that. But the Meta glasses are supposed to come out in June, and they will cost $3,000.
Yeah.
That also includes a powerful little pocket computer that's basically like a Mac Mini in your pocket. Aether, on the other hand, and what Meta is trying to do is they're trying to develop their own operating system and platform ecosystem. So they want to be the next Apple. Whereas Aether is going to be $350, not supposed to come out to the end of 2014, but it pairs with an Android phone. So it won't be as powerful, but it will be able to take all those 2D applications and make them virtual, like on a virtual tablet in front of your face. But both of these companies are doing Indiegogo or Kickstarter campaigns to try to encourage developers to start making apps, because unless they have those unique apps, they're really not going very far. And of course, I would, this is, very different than Google Glass, for example. Both Aether and Meta have a much larger field of view.
Yeah. Or these. Oh God, who makes this stuff? I just forgot the name. This is Oakley Airwave, but inside there's a computer made by a company up in Vancouver that is just not on my mind right now. Anyways, that's similar to the Google Glass, and there's another company called Scully Helmets that's making a motorcycle helmet with a similar display as Google Glass, which is a small monitor. It's not a heads-up display. It does not get between you and the real world.
So if we were,
I ride a motorcycle. I don't think I'd ever put that on.
You would.
It's
actually
just
safer.
too hard already.
It's actually
but see,
safer than not having it on, because it shows you what's behind you. There's a camera in the helmet behind you, so you don't have to turn your head to see whether there's a car next to you. It actually is a huge safety improvement, and it's quite well
I don't
thought
want to
out.
see it at all. I can use mirrors for that. I want to have it sense
All
if
right.
there's a car near
So
me.
you're not gonna
Give a
you're not gonna
little
want a self-driving car
vibration or
either.
something.
You
What?
won't want a self-driving car either, right?
And self-driving cars actually sound pretty good. Because you navigate the city. Who wants to get stuck in traffic in the city? You could just have a self-driving car take you back. But a motorcycle is a whole different experience. I don't need more external stimulus, or stimuli. I want to have just alerts about things that are, that potentially happen. Somebody's coming too fast behind you. You want to know that. Seeing it's not going to help.
Okay. Well, I think we talk about these advanced technologies, these augmented realities, whether it's kind of the very notification machine like Google Glass or Meta or Aether or these helmets, but all this stuff is quite inevitable. It's a question of time. And
well, it's also doing it right, and I think every company's going to do it wrong until they get it right, and then it will be approved by the governing commissions, and then it will be somewhat standard, and then the insurance companies will force it on us by 2017. That's my prediction.
Yeah,
but they have to get it right first.
I gave a talk, and by the way, it's Recon Instruments that's making this little computer. It's hard to see, and they make mountain biking glasses with a display as well. Last night I gave a talk at Park, which is where Steve Jobs sort of got the ideas for the Macintosh, and one of the guys made a really good point that these smart glasses are going to add capabilities to disabled people, and it's going to become a regulatory problem that you're going to have to allow people to wear these things in certain places because they're going to assist people with disabilities. So the Americans Disabilities Act is going to get in place. And that was an argument that I hadn't heard made yet. So all these bars that are saying, oh, I'm going to ban Google Glass or whatnot, in the future, you might be forced to let somebody walk in with one of those wearable computers because it's assisting them with memory or assisting them with vision or assisting them with cognitive abilities or some other thing. And it caught my ear.
Well, we just got our mid-show call from our daughter, who is going to be forced to wear Google glasses to remind her, since she forgets each week, that we're on the air right now. So if this being sort of the end of the year almost, maybe, what is the significance of these wearable devices? If you had a list, and I'm going to start with Dan Farber, if you had a list of the most important things that are going on right now in technology, where would that be in the top 5?
Well, the things that interest me are two areas. One would be this kind of augmented reality, which is the shift from physical devices to fundamentally kind of a virtual space that's laid on physical space. And the second would be search and intelligent agents, the work that's going on with Google Now or Microsoft Cortana and Siri and so on. Mm-hmm. So those are the things that I tend to think about more than processor speeds or what the battle between this company and that company.
All right, well, we'll start with 2 and then we'll come back to you for the other 3. Because, Scoble is showing us iBeam, right?
No, these are new IOTA computers. They're very, very small. They fit in somebody's hand. And he showed me them last night. They're coming out in 2014. And then he showed me prototype. These are actual full computers with a processor, memory, and a Bluetooth modem on them to talk, or a radio to talk to a cell phone. So these are the new Internet of Things. He says within 3 years, these are going to be less than $1. And that gives you a sense of where the trend lines are going. So people like me and Dan can sort of say, oh, in 2015 or 2016, we're going to have jackets with these things in them. And what could be done with that?
Well, you have a book about this stuff. So I think when I get to you, which will be after Danny, that we'll find out what you think is the 5 things that are most important. So, Danny, what are the 5 things that are most important to you?
For wearable technology?
No. No, Wearable being one of them, I would assume.
Five
What
months
else
before-
about technology is there besides Wearable?
I think the continuation of the continued transformation of things that we used to own to things that we're merely renting. I thought the stuff that Peter Kafka and a few other people did this week about the holiday video that somebody bought or Christmas video that somebody bought on Amazon getting pulled because the studio decided that during Christmas time they didn't want it available for anybody to rent because I guess they wanted you to buy the DVD or something. And so you owned it, but you didn't own it. I'm really disturbed at how much stuff I have that I think I own, but I don't really own it. You know, the music stuff I do own because it's an MP3 file and you can't really pull that back. But the books that I have and the videos that I continue to get, I don't have a whole lot of faith they're going to be around. And it's a transformation that I think some of us are aware of, but I just, you know, I think that's a big thing that's been going on.
Well, this comes up every year, just to add on to that, with Amazon, because Amazon struck agreements earlier on with the movie houses, Disney and so on, that if you bought the movie from Amazon, but it was released, the studio was Disney could pull it back. Therefore, if you bought the video, they could easily pull it back. That's an agreement that Amazon had struck. I think that is maybe a mistake on Amazon's part, but at the same time they offer refunds if Disney pulls it back. I think it looks badly on Disney too, because it's they have a
but that's what I mean, like
unwritten
for example,
contract there.
But when you buy, for example, a disc and it comes with an ultraviolet thing. I mean, you're buying a disc and you're buying ultraviolet that's coming from movie studios getting all together that gives you the impression you actually bought a digital copy. That's what it says when you get a digital copy ultraviolet, and it's like. You don't expect that the digital copy is a copy that they can pull at any time, which they can do, and that's what the terms say. There's no you always have a digital copy forever and ever, or whatever happens with it is like we're giving this to you, and you might not get it down the line. So
yeah, they got to fix that. I mean, that's definitely. They got to either be more
mean,
clear, or they have to fix that what a purchase means.
But that's why I think.
Other than that, wait till 4K and then just video it yourself.
Well, but see, I mean that's part of the reason why it kind of doesn't matter in the one sense that we don't own these things, but then they just keep re-releasing them in other formats, and we just buy them all over again. So I've got this thing. I've just never gotten around to doing it for my CNET column. Dan, I'll catch up. But it's always been something I wanted to call like the song I love the most, or the video game I love the most, or the movie I love the most, or the book I love the most. And what I wanted to do and write up and go back is plot things that I have bought repeatedly in different formats, because those must be the things I love the most. For example, I have one, I was cleaning out the garage and there were all my cassette tapes, right? And I could see that I had and then I found a bunch of old albums. So I was trying to think, is there any album that I bought or a song on an album that I bought that I then bought on cassette tape, that I then bought on MP3 that went down the way? And I didn't figure one. When it came to computer games, it probably was like Galaga, right? Because God knows I put enough quarters into machines to basically rent that video game in arcades when I was growing up. And then when that came out and was available on the PC, I'm sure I bought a copy of it for Windows or something. And then I bought it for the Xbox, and I bought it for the DS, and I bought it for the...
You should have just bought the company.
PSP. I know, but I mean, I have bought that game so many times. I have copies of it that I've bought that I have for both my iPhone and Android, right? So, and that always makes you laugh when you have these companies talk about piracy and everything. It's like, well, I don't know. I've bought this thing like 14 times in a row, it seems like.
Yeah.
But that's the thing I'm talking about. And so, and there are books that I have had in print that I have bought on Kindle now, that I, just because it was, I wanted it, and that it made sense, or I wanted to be able to have one of my kids kind of read it and go with it from there. So anyway, it's sort of a rambling thing, and that's only one of the 5 things. But yeah, I think that's a big deal of what's been going on. I think the spying stuff that's been going on is a big deal. That's very transformative. Although I'll try to keep the rant short on that. I think that the tech companies completely lost the plot. That they're still running around trying to talk about well, if only we could reveal to you the exact numbers, you'd be relaxed, right? I mean, Google's desperate to like tell you, hey, and now Verizon today is like, we're going to be transparent to tell you, hopefully, the number of requests we get from, the NSA for stuff. And it's like, hey, you've lost the point. No one believes that the NSA is getting information because they actually asked you for it. At this point, we're just assuming the NSA gets whatever they want, whether or not they ask you what they want. We've got pretty good confirmation that they go around and they've been getting through your back train. They're getting into the networks that you thought were private and that you weren't encrypted. And so, at this point, don't think that just because you suddenly come out and are able to finally reveal that, hurrah, the number of NSA requests we received was between 1 and 100 in 2013. Everyone's going to suddenly go, oh, okay, Google, I trust everything so much more. It practically doesn't impact anybody. You're right. People don't already care. People give up. They don't care. Everybody believes the NSA is doing whatever they want. No one suddenly stopped using all the technology. It doesn't mean that it's not an issue. It's kind of depressing, but, I think that was another big thing, too, that everybody's just kind of,
Okay, well, that's 3. Scoble, talk about your, I'm looking for 5, but I'll take 2.
5?
Yeah, I'm trying to get away from this wearable thing because I just don't think that it's as big a deal as we make it.
Oh, come on, Steve.
I know you wrote a book.
Apple
so
announces
what?
its new iWatch, we're going to have 15 Gillmor Gangs on it.
Do you see Scoble book cover over on Farber's screen?
Here.
Thank you. Okay.
There we go.
Now we'll put it on Scoble's screen. Let's go to the wide shot.
That covers the
okay.
book,
Everybody's
book
got it.
Part of the show.
Okay. So I get it. You wrote a book.
Pimp your Scoble.
Yeah.
I still don't think that it's the number of people that have Google Glass.
Because that's fun. Home automation is going to be a pretty big deal. I mean, these purple lights behind me from Philips. I have the Revolve going. And this is the first time that I can control a lot of things in my life through my iPhone. So I have a Nest thermostat. I just hung out with Tony Fidel at La Web, and they're thinking of a whole range of devices in your house that are going to be phone controlled. That's going to be an interesting topic. The shrinking size of everything, or i.e. Internet of Things, is starting to really arrive. And I think that's why companies like the Metas are popping up. And they're not the only ones. I spoke at Highway 1, which is a highway an accelerator for people building hardware and needing to get it built in China. And they have all sorts of interesting ideas. At La Web, I saw a Nest thermostat kind of thing for your garden for running your water system. And that can go out to the internet and see that it's raining today. And change the sprinkler system live on the fly, just the same way my Nest is watching behaviors in my house and knows that I'm not home, so it turns off the heat and it's saving me money. So home automation is going to be a big deal. Cloud is underneath everything, so that's a big deal for a lot of reasons, but the hype of it is going to go away. It's quickly turning commodity. But you are going to see a lot of hype around big data. Every company in the world is having to buy something like a Hadoop cluster to keep up with the data flows. Union Pacific is putting sensors underneath rails, and they're already getting 40 million hit sensor readings a day off those sensors. And so they need to build a system to handle that kind of data flow. Low energy Bluetooth is going to be a big deal next year. When you go to the baseball stadium with even an Android phone, but certainly an Apple product, it's going to do things as you walk around the baseball stadium. Those are already in place at Apple stores.
Okay, so what I just heard is Internet of Things, Internet of Things, and Internet of Things.
Yay!
Okay, that's 1. And then wearables is 2. Okay, I'll accept that as an answer. Okay. John Taschek.
Well, I agree with what Robert said. I agree with what Danny said too. So I have to come up with something new. I'd say interconnected enterprises are, and the enterprise are going to be huge, and they're going to enable a lot of the things that that Robert was talking about. Connecting Union Pacific with the sensors with other systems is going to be important. Connecting Union Pacific with people who have iPhones. And people were working at Union Pacific to monitor rail traffic. Important, especially if you look over the past year, you're looking at tons, or literally tons, but many more rail accidents around the world. So these things are, this is where enterprise technologies can come in. It's not just using a device to connect to one service; it's using multiple services to connect to other services. I think that's going to be an important trend this year. And that's the only way you're going to get any kind of data that's worth analyzing. Otherwise, you're analyzing stuff that's in a vacuum, which is what we've always done, and it's just worthless. So all the big data that we talk about now, it's pretty much useless. The second thing is, I think that we have not solved social. I'm looking at the, hey, what about social on the friend feed? But we haven't solved social to the degree where it has absorbed the way we communicate or informs us of a new way of communication. Instead, it's a kind of an archive of information of how you talk to one another. But it needs to get to the point of easiness. So I think there's going to be a focus on ease of use for social in order for it to make our lives easier. Right now, they're not easier. I think we have to look at Facebook and Twitter as replacements for news services. They already are. I think that's going to be, there's more of that coming. This is not. This in turn leads to the kind of the end of inbound marketing, as far as every company has to be its own content store, and therefore implicates Danny and his work about SEO and how that's going to change. So I think SEO will change dramatically because just the content shifts come from multiple different sources, and then people need to know how to track it.
Oh, that's a good one. Danny, do you agree with that?
In terms of
the death of SEO?
Oh God, no.
No, I didn't say the death of SEO.
Yeah, I know you didn't. That's
SEO
why
is changing.
That's why it's called the Gillmor Gang.
It implicates the work that you do, because SEO is going to go from has to include multiple different sources rather than just the SEO that's coming into your own company, and I think that's you've already seen that. Not every company is going to be a content repository where you're measuring how searches work. I think it's going to be different. I don't
Danny,
know exactly
do you agree?
how that's going to happen. Danny might have more information.
Well, SEO is always changing. It's it's funny. It's hard to explain where SEO is going because people oftentimes have different definitions of what SEO is, and my definition of SEO has been pretty unchanging. It is that you identify the way that people are searching for information and figure out the ways that you can increase your visibility in those search places for free. That's opposed to, say, SEM, which is you find out how people are searching for information and increase your visibility through paid ads and so on. That definition I gave you didn't say that you did a search with keywords, and it didn't say that you did a search with keywords on Google, or that you necessarily pushed people to your own website. It's just that you understand how people seek information and you increase the visibility in those places. If you understand that definition or you accept that definition, then you understand that SEO is always changing. But one of the core parts of SEO that really has never changed is that good content tends to do well. So, if you've got good content, that tends to be the kinds of things that does well in search systems, whether it is you are found because someone did a search for good restaurants in San Francisco on Google and it brought that up as a web page that was doing all the things that were right, or that you opened up Foursquare and you were near something that had a lot of good reviews and it popped it up because a lot of your friends there. That's a different kind of search, even though you didn't type any keywords at all. So
I agree, and I think that Google is ahead on this. They're getting ahead of the curve on this with Google Now, and because they're figuring out what people are searching for at some place and tying it together with some kind of notification, and that's changing. What I don't think is happening is that people understand that much. I also think that it has dramatically changed since those fake content repositories that Google had shut down. It was just this year, that a lot of those bubbled up and were shut down kind of quickly.
Right.
That's all. I think that goes away. I think it's just where people get information is just different. Therefore,
But
everyone
that's-
who's been optimized,
right.
to run SEO style campaigns has to be disrupted. They are being disrupted now.
But
And maybe
they aren't
you were the only one
necessar-
who understands that.
But no,
But
they
I-
aren't
but I
necessarily.
don't think everyone
because I
does.
think I know, but that's what I mean is that if you look at a demand media and they're doing their eHow and then they get hit by the Penguin update, was that SEO? Yeah, there was an SEO play that was going on there. But that wasn't a typical SEO play for most companies that are doing most sorts of things that are out there. If you look at people who are going out there and buying links, which Google has been cracking down on, that was never an SEO play. That was just spamming, at least by Google's definition, because they have long said that they don't like people buying links. So people will conflate particular tactics with the idea that that is SEO. Tactics are not SEO. Some tactics can be part of SEO, but the act of doing SEO is different. So, are there certain SEO tactics that people are going to have to change up? Sure. But that's not necessarily different. Even if you start talking about content, you can go back to Google's Florida update of like 2004, 2005, I think it was, and it hit tons of people. And it was all the same sort of thing. People would be like, well, SEO's dead or SEO's over, or now that kind of SEO doesn't work.
What's the latest Google platform now?
In terms of, you mean Hummingbird?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
what's different about that? I mean, that's where you can kind of measure what's happening. What's different in Hummingbird than it was in the previous 2 or 3? I mean, because it disrupted a lot of people. I mean, I think that's going to happen again.
Hummingbird
After Hummingbird is going to come Red Robin or something. There's going to be another thing that's going to be very disruptive.
What's the question, John? I don't understand your question.
Hummingbird, the platform, the SEO, the Google search optimization page rank system that is all tied together in their system, in the Google system that only Danny understands.
So to back up a little bit, Google, when you search, they use a search algorithm to figure out which pages should or which content should come up first. A lot of people have assumed that was PageRank. PageRank was always part of that algorithm, which is a particular aspect of it. But the algorithm is this recipe they use to figure out all the different things that they should measure up to decide what comes first. And they hadn't given a real name to that overall algorithm for ages. What we have had names for were little tweaks that they made to the algorithm. Things like Panda, which was designed to not allow content that was sort of like junk food content from doing as well. Or things like Penguin, which was designed to do a better job of policing their search results so that spam wasn't getting through. Or another thing that they had was, we refer to it as Pirate, which was to go after people who had a lot of DMCA complaints. What happened was in August and then announced in September, but sometime in August, Google basically blew apart its search engine algorithm and rebuilt it. So you can think of it very much like as a car. They had a car. This car's been driving along on gasoline. The car's engine had all sorts of parts in it, such as an air filter and an oil filter and fuel injection, all this stuff. And the car that they were driving really was about 10 years old. And so they said, let's come up with a new engine. And so they rebuilt this engine. And when they got done with it, that new engine, they said, is the Hummingbird engine. And what was different was, first of all, it impacted practically nobody. Nobody even knew they put in a new engine until they told the world that they had done it. So maybe it wasn't that much of a difference. Or more likely, it's an engine that still runs pretty much like the old engine. Still uses gasoline, or in Google's case, still uses links. Still uses all the main things to kind of make the engine run. But the difference was they wired in things to help them perhaps take advantage of new technologies or developments. So you could think of it as it's still running on gasoline, but guess what? It can also be a hybrid engine now. So it can make use of the gasoline more efficiently. Or it can also run on diesel, and it can also run on biofuel.
Okay,
or
but what are
sometimes
those
go electric.
What are those new technologies that it's
Well, that's
going
what
to
I'm
take
getting to.
advantage
So
of? Thanks.
if you understand it has this ability to tap into new things,
We got that.
the biggest new thing that they added in was an ability to tap into what's called entity search or entities or structured data. And that kind of gets back to your Internet of Things. You could think of it as a search of things. That in the past, if you had searched for, Barack Obama, Google would come back with pages that matched Barack Obama because the words Barack Obama were on the page. And literally it's looking to say, do you see these letters in this order on these pages? Okay, go get them. And now Google understands that Barack Obama is an actual person, a known entity who has connection to things like an age, a height, a spouse, an office. And you can see this when you do things like speak to Google and say, how old is Barack Obama? And it'll come back and say, Barack Obama is this age. It understood that Barack Obama was an actual person connected to those facts. And so that's the biggest change that's happened with Hummingbird is that they now have the ability baked into their search engine to do conceptual searches or to understand that when you search, you are searching for actual entities or people, places, and things, not that you're just searching for words that may not have as much meaning.
All right. So do you see any impact on anything that we interact with as a people right now from that, or is that just more sugar for Google down the road?
You get some impacts in where it helps them solidify their search lead. For example, if you go to Google, and I think this works where you can say, what's my schedule? And you've let Google also have your schedule in their calendar, then it comes back with your calendar listings, which is something you can't do, say, on Bing, because it doesn't have your calendar listing, plus it doesn't understand what necessarily schedule is conceptually related to. So it allows Google to be more easily tied in with a lot of our personal data, assuming we've opted into that sort of stuff. And it also possibly allows Google to be more tied into some of the actual objects that are out there.
Okay.
Where you could,
Got it. All right. So I want to sort of summarize the big things that I heard from all of you. I heard Internet of Things. Go ahead, Robert.
Just add on a couple of robots, because obviously Google's investing big deal there, but other people are too. Drones and 3D printers. I still think all three are going to be interesting.
In other words, robots, and robots.
It's a hardware
Flying
revolution.
robots, ground robots, dog robots.
Printed robots. What, John?
I just said hardware revolution, but yeah, I mean, I think that's that's one of those literally pet projects that are good for the next 10 years. I don't think that's going to be a big thing next year. We're not going to have drones flying around next year. I'd be shocked, and I'll also, take them out of the sky myself.
All right, so I want to go back and I want to yank a couple of these sort of non-obvious ones out. What Danny said about rental, I think that's a good way of rolling up streaming, which is a good way of rolling up the media disruption that's been launched by the iPhone and the iPad, and obviously continues with. You can now get a free copy of Elf as of today.
In SD.
I feel really empowered. Dan Farber, what of the so I pulled out one of what everybody else said. One other thing that everybody else talked about was something that you feel is impacting on your life right now.
Well, I think everything is related in some way to this Internet of Things or Internet everywhere, and how it's still really difficult. So if you talk about something like home automation, there really aren't enough standards in place where that's easy enough to do. And there are a lot of people fighting to, be the standard. And you know how it is with developing standards. It's incredibly difficult, takes a long time, but that's what that basically is what holds things up, which is home automation should be really easy. But right now it's not. And as the price comes down, what needs to happen is that there need to be tools, basically user interfaces and software that makes it super easy to implement it. And then to manage it, because you're going to have all this incoming data, whether it's your health monitor, your home monitoring, your car monitoring, your device monitoring, your work, tremendous amount of monitoring and traffic. So your big personal data is a problem to solve.
Okay, what about Siri?
Well,
I think Danny said that.
Yeah.
Siri, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not just Siri. It's the notion that
No, but what about Siri?
Well, imagine this scenario. You're walking to your car and you've got some device. It's in your clothes, it's in your hand, in your pocket, on your face. And you say, Siri, you wave your hand to open the car door. You say, Siri, put on this music station. Siri, here's where I'm going. Send a message to my wife to tell her I'll be late, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, so it's the integration of all these technologies into this digital lifestyle where you have huge amount of intelligence in the cloud. Somewhat similar, I guess, to this new movie, this new Spike Jonze / Adam C. Spiegel movie called Her, where the character Joaquin Phoenix falls in love with his Siri, who is played by the voice of, I can't remember her name.
Scarlett Johansson.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It was originally played by another actress, and then she was replaced.
I guess she was
much
British.
Like Siri is replacing what? Google Now?
No, I don't think Siri is replacing Google Now, but you have companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft, and even some small companies or Nuance. I mean, they're all working on this problem, which is, how do you get enough intelligence in the cloud with the knowledge graph that Google has or whatever Apple has. Microsoft calls their knowledge-based Satori, and combine that with natural language, and then combine that with as Danny was saying, allowing Apple or Google or whomever to know about your calendar, to know about your contacts, et cetera, then, you boil that up and you start to have something that resembles the personal digital assistant that's been talked about for 20 years and made many guest appearances in movies.
So what I did this morning was I had a reason to try and figure out how to do dictation into the phone. And so I couldn't figure it out. So I finally gave up and asked Siri, how do I do this? And that didn't really help, but I did get a list. I had pushed the little question mark at the bottom of the screen. It gave me a list of things that it does do. And that list is growing rapidly. And it's really interesting. So to me, it reminds me of what happened when Visual Basic sort of took off from where HyperCard had left off and gave us the sense that we could talk to our machines in such a way that we could establish a conversation with them. In other words, that there'd be some intelligence coming back and hopefully some intelligence going in. And I think that that's a practical reality now for the first time this year.
Oh, I don't think computers are passing what's called the Turing test, where you can't tell if on the other end that the computer is a human or not.
No, but you can tell. The Turing test is kind of inverted now, which is that you can tell if you tell the computer what you want to know, it will probably give you an answer. If you have to be smart enough to be able to understand what the limitations of the computer are.
Right. Yes, but I think that's not for normal people.
Scoble, is that for normal people?
Is what for normal people? I didn't.
To tell to having
To
people understand the
limitations
limitations of the computer so that they can start interacting with it in an intelligent way.
I think it's coming where you're going to have dialogue with things, but I think yeah, it's going to be pretty hard. At SRI when I toured SRI a couple months ago, they showed us a bank system that you're just going to talk to and say, "Hey, can you tell me how much money is in my checking account?" And then can you help me with getting a loan, stuff like that. And it's really hard to tell there's not a human on the other side. Now, if you keep talking, you can tell, because if you really have a human conversation with a human, you can go, and what's your favorite music? And they'll have a great answer, right? This system won't be programmed for that. And they'll go, hey, let's stick with banking. They'll be, oh, okay, I'm talking to a machine. But who cares? If you get the answer to your checking account, that's all you really wanted from the bank. You didn't want to know what she thought of Neil Young,
Well, one of the problems that I have with voice recognition is that, if you want the computer to take dictation, the problem is that you actually have to think in advance. You actually have to have a kind of a script that you know what you're going to say fast enough so that the machine doesn't stop. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the problem I had this morning, and I finally figured it out. That I can't make that work. I could record these things, and I could just push the record, the pause button, think about what the next thing I want to say, and then push record again, and then so on and so forth, and string it together that way. But the way I could do it with Siri was to start a note, and then say, Siri will just sit there and say, okay, is that it? Basically it will say, I'll say add a note, and they'll say, add to that note, the last note. You can also say which note. You could say how many notes, show me the notes that I have made in the last 24 hours, etc., etc. You can begin to start editing verbally with the machine. Now, if that starts to learn from that interchange and you start to rely on it, then you've got something that we haven't had before, which is something that's easy enough to use. I mean, this microphone's always on. John's favorite app on the Android, Shazam, just came out with a new iteration, which is always on. You don't have to turn the phone on. You don't have to go to the app. It's always on. So if the song comes along and you're listening to it, you just, I don't know what you do. You ask it probably, and it'll tell you what the song is. These things are rapidly maturing right now to the point where we can actually get some work done. Until then, I don't think that this. That's my problem with the wearable discussion is that when I finally figured out that having to have the Fitbit on all the time is probably the only answer. At that point, it started to become very useful to me because I started to rely on it. Once I started to rely on it, I started to change my behavior to feed it. And that's the sort of virtuous loop that I think technology is looking for. So I think that's a major change that's happened in the past year. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think. I think you're right. I think that if we go back in a year at the end of the next year, and we go back and listen to what we're saying now, that it will be a pretty fundamental, rudimentary kind of conversation, because I think this technology is accelerating very rapidly. The always-on feature that Robert has talked about in the Moto X, it's in many Android phones now. It's going to be everywhere. The Google Now is learning already, so that if you have something in your calendar, it will tell you what time you have to leave now in order to, if you're driving, what time you have to leave in order to get to that place. You don't even have to communicate with it. I think that you're tying things in together, like, the wearables are just extensions of this kind of central, command unit, which was called the phone. And I think voice is going to be somewhat of a lost art, and it's going to be highly refined at the same time, where people lose the ability to speak in a normal way. I think it's already happening because they're going to be issuing certain levels of commands, and they have an expectation that comes very soon. This has been predicted over time, but I think it's actually going to happen. Um, and and then these systems will be learning, and therefore, what that movie is predicting basically is that you can have a relationship with your computer that may or may not be better than the ones you have in real life. The pet of the future.
Dan,
That was kind of scary.
which part?
Thank you. Just me,
That
video of me, I think he's talking about.
No, I think that what John said about having a better relationship with your virtual friends than your real friends.
They've been doing it in Japan for like 20 years.
Well,
There's the airport at SFO in Terminal 3, the United Terminal, there you have the museum. And in the museum is Japanese toys from the 50s and on. They're all that. They're all robots. It's fascinating.
Yes, well, yeah, I tend to think that the human nature, the corporal self, needs a little more than talking to some bits. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things are evolving faster than I think. Maybe singularity actually means that you just vacate your body.
Mindfulness for computers?
Yes.
Well, we're talking digitally now, and I think that all code and all programs are representations of people, and it just abstracts them and simplifies communication gaps that people have. Well, and just doing that is, helps. I'm not saying that people are going to give up talking altogether. It's going to still happen. It needs to happen. Eye contact, all the nonverbal gestures that that have to be captured. They won't be, even on video.
Well, robots,
but this is, next year it's happening.
There'll be holograms and robots and everything that can mimic those things. So you don't need to worry about that in the future. And it could be, there's a group of scientists, I believe, at the University of Washington who are running some experiments and claim that these experiments are legitimate to ascertain whether or not we are the product of a giant computer like the Matrix. So that could be the case, and therefore this whole discussion is just around whether we are going to end up getting closer to our bit origins, or that we're fundamentally biological and then transition into the future where you live more virtually, digitally, and less contact. Might be difficult, but I tend to think that almost anything is possible. You may not live long enough to see it. That's all.
Danny Sullivan, you want to get your arms around this?
Well, I think the Google Now stuff, especially, has just been stunning. I've had that same sort of thing. I think John mentioned where it's giving you those sorts of predictions. I laughed because my mother was coming down for Thanksgiving. My wife was like, "Have you checked on her flight? Because they might have had some delays or whatever." And then I said, "No, not yet." She said, "Well, I'll check on it for you." And it was like a half hour delayed. So I went to go get into my car and to go pick her up at a little bit later. And when I grabbed my phone, which I hadn't had, my phone was already giving me an alert that her flight was being delayed. Now, I didn't do anything to get that. I had booked her flight. The reservation was in my email. Google Now has the permission to see my email. It figured it all out. And it's constantly. So I would have gotten that kind of alert if I grabbed my phone early. If I started to run out the door earlier, even if my wife hadn't done it. So I replaced my wife. It was great, but still, I like my wife better. But it's constantly doing that sort of stuff. And I think that one of the key things that I'm finding is that, when I first started writing about search, there was a lot of talk that we were going to have agents that would just run around and find everything for us. Autonomy was, especially if you remember the company, was really big on this. Our agents will find everything for you. And I was really, really dubious about this because we constantly have new needs. We don't always know the things we want, right? There are things that come up that I had no idea I want today because I read something or I discovered something. And I realized I have a new, I've got to fix my hot water heater. No agent suddenly knew my hot water heater was going. Now, maybe in the future, it'll know that my hot water heater is getting kind of old and it'll figure out that, hey, that would be pretty powerful. But the problem with agents is that they can overwhelm you. We've had any number of things that have been out there trying to constantly find information for us, and we don't need more information right now. I think that also kind of relates back. I was talking to somebody. Sorry, Google just started going off on me. Can you guys still hear me? Because it gave me an alert. Yeah, okay. While I was talking,
I think you do this thing that I've seen some musicians do, which is like circular breathing. While they're exhaling, they're also inhaling simultaneously.
No. What happened was as I was talking, I must have said the words "Okay, Google" because I have my browser set so that I'm on Google's homepage and it hears me. See, it's going off again now. It thinks I want to search because I said that. Anyway, the thing about Google now is that it's not overwhelming you with information. It is being very, very careful about giving you information when it thinks you need to have it. And I think it's doing a very good job on that. And I think that as we get more and more tied in with our technology and all these different things, that's one of the key successes here is that we're not going to be overwhelmed with stuff, that we're not going to have things that are just, hey, I'm going to save it and let you read it later, but do a better job of helping us understand it now. And I was talking to somebody, I almost wondered if that's part of the reason why something like a Snapchat is so successful, or that a Twitter is successful, that there's any number of things I'm supposed to read or keep up with, and I can never do it, right? And your Netflix queue gets really big, and I should add something else into that. And one nice thing about something like Twitter is that, it's there and it's gone. And if you don't catch it, maybe you'll catch it on a flip-flop when it comes down. Or something like a Snapchat, it's like there and it's gone. I don't have to think about what's going to be the impact of that thing I did. It went away. I mean, not that I use Snapchat, but I don't. But, maybe that's one of the things that's attractive to some of the people who are using it, is that I don't want to have to maintain all this sort of stuff and figure out all these sorts of things. So.
Yeah, it's why RSS, the readers got killed, is because, it just kept telling you how many unread messages you had.
To some degree, yeah. I mean, there are people who really depend on RSS and really want to go through it, but you could definitely have this feeling of, I can't keep up on it all. And I know that for me, Twitter and Facebook have done a very good job for me of replacing what I used to use for RSS. Although I have an editor who does that for me as well. So I don't, he depends on RSS because he really does need to make sure we're not missing any sort of thing. And then I get a little email in the morning telling me what I should be paying attention to.
Robot.
Yeah, but he's a nice human robot.
Yeah. Robert Scoble.
I have nothing to say.
Why is that?
I don't know.
What was the highlight of the web?
Well, we launched a company. Andy Grignon's 8ly launched there, and we were one of the few companies or presentations that actually showed something new. And we showed off how low energy Bluetooth radios work. But Dina Kaplan gave the speech that caught our attention. She got an ovation in the speaker room when I was sitting there, and that's pretty rare to get your peers to applaud. But it was not a technology speech. It was about overcoming fear. She's CEO of Blip, or was CEO of Blip.fm.
Aptly named.
The highlight was the Guy Savoy dinner, but now I caused all sorts of people to hate me.
I don't think so. It's like Danny says, it's all temporary, and then people forget, and then everything's okay again. So this fear thing, what was that about?
She just was give a whole talk about her life and how she spent a few months traveling and overcoming fears, like overcoming fear of jumping off a bridge, doing the bungee jumping stuff. It was just a fun, entertaining speech because it was personal and uh, she was looking at her own life and what she was doing wrong and not where she wasn't succeeding, and it was interesting.
And why was that in the tech conference, or is the web turning
Loic,
into something else now?
Well, Loic has always tried to have a TED style a few sessions. He had the world champion kiteboarder there. He tries to do what you guys do at Dreamforce, where you have interesting people on stage talking about something other than tech. I mean, you guys had who do you have at Dreamforce this year? You had Richard Branson, right? Or
that was last year.
That was last year. But you had tell me about some of the people you had speaking, because I didn't go to those speeches.
John?
I was on mute. What?
Did you say anything? Oh.
No.
Who do we have at Dreamforce this year that was not necessarily tech related?
Oh, yeah, you could answer that, Steve. I think you were there too. And so is Robert. So not tech related. I mean, we did a lot on Foundation and from the Salesforce Foundation, which was, we had the person from the model who was, nearly crushed it,
right.
In the
Haiti
Indonesian tsunami, or lost her fiance. Now is helping, I think Helping Hearts, and we had Deepak Chopra speaking. We had a lot of, I would say that half the keynotes were not technology related, but bring together that the technology is fundamentally related to the community, and there are shows that do like technology and community, but hardly any actually tie them together in such a way that I think Dreamforce did. So I think overall it was a really amazing show for me, even as a person who's at Salesforce, but goes into these things just like anybody else does as an outsider, because they're so enormous now, and you get a feeling that what we're doing is not just solving a couple of technical issues or solving a couple technology, feature checkoffs, but doing something that's actually worthwhile. And I think that if Loic is trying to do that, it's good. But I don't think having a kiteboarder or somebody talking about fears is going to do enough of that. I think we have to do it more as an industry overall.
Okay, so I would summarize by saying that this notion of being afraid of too much technology is giving way to being afraid of not being able to use technology in a human way. And I think that's something that I feel is going to happen very quickly as we start to grapple with the stream and its consequences. There's been a lot of talk about the death of blogs in the past week. Couldn't agree more. But it's not that blogs are dead so much as that the idea of putting all of your thoughts in one document is giving way to a stream of documents, a stream of information that's malleable, that is reactive, that is interactive, that is collaborative. Those are the technologies that have now surfaced in many ways for free and in a viral way that are giving us the ability to do things that before we could only do face to face. And it's not, as Dan Farber says, it's not going to replace face to face. It's going to enable and empower face to face for some people. That's why conferences like LeWeb are so valuable, is because they bring together people and the hallway conversation has always been the most important part of any of these conferences. Is that still true, Robert?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry about the problems at the beginning. I've been pouring through with Tina and I have been building the TriCaster for Gillmor Gang 2.0, and it is really remarkable as we start to understand what we are going to be able to do. It's not so much that things are going to change as that we're going to be able to bring a little bit of repeatability and a little bit of confidence in what's going on technically to what I think is the value of the show, which is the conversation. It's the it's the stuff in the cracks here that's important, and we're going to keep going with it. I want to thank Rackspace and particularly Rob Legess, without which this show would not have returned from where it was at that time. And if that's obscure, then you haven't been paying attention. I want to thank New Tech, and we'll be thanking them a lot over the next few weeks as we make this transition. Right now, we've sort of got the studio split in half. We've got the present here, and the future is just behind me, where Tina's hand is. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
I'm in a different spot.
Right. It's going to be an all-new look, except for me, unfortunately.
Yeah. How do we do that?
Yeah, I don't think it can be done. I want to thank John Taschek.
I was gonna do the wave, but it's been taken. Well, I need a new thing. You know, maybe it's Shaka, whatever the. Thank you, Steve. It's been great. And if I don't talk to anyone before
Christmas.
Wait, is this like? Isn't it Christmas is next week?
Christmas
right?
is next week. It's
Damn
in the
it.
middle of the week.
So, not damn Christmas, but Merry Christmas all.
Well done, John.
I try.
I want to thank.
Damn it!
All right. Well, I was going to thank Robert Scoble, but I'll thank you, Danny. Welcome. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
have a good time in South California.
South California.
Yeah. Thanks to Robert Scoble, as always.
Thank you very much.
And Dan Farber from the mysterious North California.
Thank you. Have a nice holiday.
All right. Thanks to the chat room. Thanks to everybody who showed up, especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.